Oh, hello. We're back yet again. And look what I have. Peter and a sock that's sitting on a tire from the Prado.
A dock.
No one cares about docks. So in this video, we're putting the engine on an engine stand, cleaning it up, and potentially putting the head on. I don't know if I'm going to do it in this video or another video, but we're getting progress done. Very much so. Isn't that right, Peter?
No. We're doing nothing.
First job of the day, take clutch off. It's not really day, it's like 8 o'clock at night because I work full time and that's an excuse. Not really. But anyway, so it appears that this engine has, I can't move it. It has an XR6'S clutch on it, which is good. I don't know what condition it's in, but I do know that it's very, very shuddery. That could have something to do with the flywheel not being machined properly or at all. Or it could be Loctite that's been flung around because a couple of my mates have had that issue with their AUs. We'll find out. My prediction is that the flywheel is buggered. Clunch. Remove the clunch. Has a couple of heat spots in the pressure plate. Not too bad though. I don't know, I can't feel any grooves with my fingers, so I guess that's good. Anyway, moving on. It looks brand new. It's got plenty of life left on it. It's nowhere near the rivets, which is good. This is a heavy duty, which is great for breaking T5s. Now I need to take the flywheel off. These are 19s and you want to take them off in a cross pattern. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This should make light work of it. Lovely. Oh crap, that's heavier than I thought. You know what, I'd like to know what isn't leaking on this engine. I think that'll be an easier question than actually finding out what is leaking. Because the rear main looks like it's never been changed. Moving on. Ori.
No.
Okay. We finally have the engine on the engine stand. So we assembled it a few nights ago. I think that if I showed myself assembling this on video, I would be admitted to a mental institution. I can pull a motor out of the car, but I can't assemble an engine stand. So Ollie had to help me.
Yeah. And you snapped a bolt.
I snapped a bolt, yes, correct. It's no longer connected to this or in this thing. So right now, what we're doing is we're just taking off all the accessories. So as you can probably tell, this is the state of the alternator. So if you guys are wondering why I decided to remove this engine from the car, I had one look at it and I'm like, no, this thing's not staying in the car. This isn't paint. That's not paint. That's just oil. You can see like the top half of it is still sort of golden, but yeah, I thought this thing was painted, but it's actually not paint. It's just oil. This is just disgusting. So like if you have a look at the front of it, like there's just like millions of layers of just gunk and old residue from sealant and whatnot. But new crank pulley, did you say?
Yep.
Yeah, well, I mean, it did chew up belts,
Yep.
Nice and good. So yeah, the previous owner pulled off the crank pulley and he just mangled it because why not? I mean,
because they've got rubber here, so when you pull it wrong, it sort of offsets the whole crank pulley to where it needs to be.
Yeah, so maybe if we buzz it off, it might just fall off because the vibrations have just been loosening it off all over time. The water pump's seen better days, the alternator, everything's just chrome socket, crank pulley. No worries. Look at that. It didn't fall off as we expected. Maybe if I kick it. I apologize if you guys can't hear me well, because I'm working under a tin roof and it's bucketing down outside. But what I have is a test. This test will determine whether or not this motor is usable. And you guys might be wondering, you know, what kind of test do you have? Like, what could possibly decide the fate of this engine? There was a comment in the previous video to check end float or end play on the crankshaft. So a lot of longer engines like Barras and like TBs out of Patrols and 1FZs, Cruisers, 4 liters, Sox, Intex, whatever, they suffer from end play because the crankshaft is so long, and sometimes these longer engines have a lot of harmonic imbalances, and so they end up wearing out their crankshaft thrust washers and stuff. So what I'm gonna do is I have a dial gauge and I'm gonna measure the end play on the crank. Ideally, you want to measure it from the rear of the crank, so where it comes out where the rear main seal is. However, I can't really get to it because of that. I'll try, but what I've done is I've just set it up here. So here's a dial gauge, and I'm going to measure it off the harmonic balancer because the harmonic balancer does move with the engine. And it doesn't matter if it's warped or not, it just matters about the actual in and out movement. So let's see if this engine is royally f***ed or not. So I have this Bible here which conveniently came with the car when I bought it, amongst other things. But what I'm interested in is these rebuild and maintenance tolerances. So the number we're looking for, crankshaft end float. So the tolerances need to be between 0.1 and 0.2 mil of float, and the wear limit is 0.3. So at 0.3, you basically need to tear the engine down and rebuild it. So hopefully I won't need to do it with this engine, but we shall find out right now. So when I first took the head off this engine, I noticed that it still has some of the cross hatching left in the bores, which is, it's not rare, but if you have a really, really worn engine, you won't even see the cross hatching. You can still see the cross hatching, the sort of marks, circular marks along the bores. So it still has that, and it doesn't look like it has too much ovaling, which is also good. I'm excited to find out what the end float is. So the way you want to set it up is like this. This has a magnetic base, so what I've done is I've just attached it to the sump because that's steel. You have your dial gauge here, obviously. Ideally, you want to put it on the snout of the crankshaft, but because this actual plunger thing isn't long enough to hit it without fouling on the actual harmonic balancer. So what I'm going to do is just measure it off the balancer, which is fine because it's still connected to the crank. And although the bolt isn't in there, it's still completely seized onto the crank, which most harmonic balancers are. So I'm going to push it all the way in and simply zero out the gauge just by turning it. So that's on 0. We want a reading between 0.1 of a mil and 0.2 of a mil. So anything between 0.2 and 0.3, no good. And there we go. Push it out, bang. So our reading here is near as makes no difference, 0.16, which is perfect. That's what we want. Tank angle sensor. Nice. This will give you guys a better idea of how disgusting this engine is. So this is how the motor currently stands. Everything is basically off it, aside from obviously the harmonic balancer, the timing cover and the sump. In the next video, I will pull everything off. I just need to get a hold of a crank puller. Once I have that, I will take that off and I'll be able to take the sump and the timing cover off. And then we'll be able to see what lies in the sump, because if there's a bunch of metal shavings in there or if it's gunked up, then we'll make a decision in the next video. But I reckon this motor will be fine. It's been looked after all right, just some dodgy repairs and stuff. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoy these videos, please stick around because it's only going to get a whole lot better. This is just only the beginning of the turbo build. So I'm super keen to get the head back on and to get this car finally running because I haven't driven it in months. But anyway, thank you guys so much. Take it easy. See you in the next one. Bye bye.